I spent years hating myself and hating anyone that disagreed with my perspective of life and self. I was right. You were wrong. But that's not true. I was wrong. That is until I met Jay, who helped me change my perspective on so many things about life, self, and other people. He's so good at it that he even wrote a book. And it's called Eyes Wide Open, Volume 1. That can help people change their perspective, just like I learned to change mine. So, Jay, can you explain what a perspective is and how people can go about changing them?
Sure. A perspective is just the way you see the world, or the way you see a situation, or the way you see yourself or somebody else, the way you see anything, really. And it's formed by where you stand emotionally, mentally, consciously, spiritually, and so on. It's formed by what you've lived and understood and experienced up to this point. It's formed by your current mood and your current attitude. If your current mood and attitude are leaning negative, or if your current beliefs are leaning negative, you'll have a negative perspective of whatever's going on. If your current mood and beliefs are leaning positive, then you'll have a positive view of whatever's going on overall.
So this is why I had such crappy perspectives, because I was such a negative person about, you name it, everything and anything. Okay. This is helpful. Why should we be trying to change our perspective if we're always right?
So by now, most people in modern day society kind of understand that our perspective creates our reality, or our perspective shapes our reality, or our perspective influences our reality. And so this is a huge reason why you want to change your perspective, right? All of us want to change our reality. We all want to live some better life some way. We all want a better financial situation, or a better romantic situation, or a better health situation. And those situations, those realities aren't going to change unless you change your perspective. You'll just loop them forever. Like they'll just stay the same unless you make some tweaks in your heart and your mind, in your standpoint, that changes your view, that changes your perspective of things and allows reality to change. Does that make sense? That it's very, very, very important to gain control of your perspective and be able to change it consciously no matter what life throws at you?
Oh, for sure. This was game changer for me. Yeah. So I get it. Okay. Thanks. So you change your perspective big time, because you used to be, and I quote your own words, an arrogant asshole. Yes?
Yeah.
Love you. So, how did you change your perspective on life in general to go from that arrogant person that you used to be to the amazing, kind, and loving person that you are now?
Well, I kind of took the hard route. Since I was a kid, I loved being right. And so because I loved being right, I learned to master logic and rationality and reason. I learned to make very strong, compelling arguments and reach powerful conclusions from strong premises. And it worked for me. I won every argument. I was always right. I always came out looking like a rose. I never looked bad or looked wrong. And people would leave discussions with me thinking, like, wow, I guess he was right, or I guess I misunderstood, or they would just give up arguing with me and be like, well, this is a waste. I'm never going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's difficult to argue with a master arguer, like debater, the way you are. Like, you're really good at it.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but it was a personal strength. My mom thought I was going to grow up to be a lawyer.
Right.
And this made me really good at defending my perspectives. This made me really good at convincing people that my perspective was a better one or the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And it also made me like a giant asshole. Like I was a prick. I treated people poorly, and I steamrolled over all of their ideas, opinions, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, you name it, because I knew I was right, and I knew I could defend myself, and I knew I could win the argument. And so I knew my perspective was going to rule the day.
Right.
And so this is actually the worst thing you can have for changing your perspective, because then I have no reason to change my perspective.
Right.
every time something doesn't go my way, I can use words and logic and reason to make sure that I don't have to change my perspective. I don't have to admit I'm wrong. I don't have to admit I made a mistake. I don't have to look at things differently. I don't have to try on new beliefs. I don't have to do anything, any mental work or apply much critical thinking at all to get through the situation.
Right.
I could just talk my way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that felt good for a while. I lived like that for, a decade. And although it meant I never really had to admit that I was wrong, it also meant that I didn't grow. I didn't change. I didn't improve. I was always an asshole. I was always overconfident. I was always able to navigate my way through life. But over relying on that and staying stuck in that caused me to lose everything. Like, I ended up homeless, broke, evicted, abandoned, betrayed, robbed, jailed, isolated, you name it. 5 billion failed businesses. Insane, right? Just, I ended up in a terrible situation. And at my lowest point, when I was suicidally depressed and I gave up on life, life forced me to change my perspective. So I dropped everything I knew about life since I had nowhere else to go. And that was a massive turning point for me. That was the biggest perspective shift I'd ever had. I abandoned everything I ever thought or believed. And I was like, whatever, this is my life now. This is the new me. I just do whatever I want, lay here for as long as I want, and pray to die. And doing that led to a chain of events where I ended up helping a celebrity, Evan Carmichael, grow his empire to 3 million followers. And I had a home and I had money and I had everything. Like, life had turned around, but it turned around because my perspective changed. And so from this point on, I knew life is not black or white. I'm not always right. Other people are not always wrong. I need to start looking at things differently and see all sides of things and be more open and explore alternate solutions, even counterintuitive solutions. And that every time I think I have it the right way, there's probably a better way. And so I do my best to remain open to that and to listen to that and to listen to other people and to listen to what they say and to continually elevate my own perspective as much as possible so I have a broad view of every situation. And I've been practicing this over and over with myself and anyone I interact with. And it's a superpower. It helps so much.
Thank you for sharing that. Like, I got all emotional because your story is super powerful, what you went through. And I know a lot of people don't want to go through like those intense things that you had to go through, like being homeless and laying in the park on a park bench for 36 hours. But it's what helped you have a massive perspective shift. So I have a few follow-up questions and that related to that perspective shift. So one is, was it a massive shift immediately? So like, okay, you realize like you got up from the heat because you were hot and you went to the library because you wanted AC and you started answering questions for free on like with no agenda, just to help people in a business forum, Evan's forum. And so did all of the perspective shift at once? Was it like this massive thing immediately? Or was it just like a little bit at a time? Like it started there and trickled down?
Yeah, it's a good question. Shifting your perspective can happen anyway. Like, it can happen in a big shift all at once, like a quantum leap or whatever.
Yeah.
But it can also happen bit by bit, step by step. There's no right or wrong way.
Right.
But there's pros and cons. The pros and cons are that anyone who has a quantum leap has to go through some intense experience to do it, either beforehand or during or after.
Yes.
So you're signing up for the drama. You're signing up for the story. You're signing up for the crazy, intense quantum leap, whatever it is. And you can study all the gurus or anyone who's like, come to an enlightened awareness of life or whatever it is. And if they did a quantum leap thing, it was dramatic and intense. The pros and cons of the other route, the bit by bit, step by step route, is that it's not flashy, it's not dramatic, it's not a quantum leap. It's almost boring. It's just like disciplined work, just practice, just applying yourself. But you also don't get the crazy drama.
Right.
You get one little bad thing happens to you and you practice your new perspective and you're like, oh, okay, I think I see the good in this situation. And then The next time something a little worse happens and you do it again, and then something not as bad happens, you're like, oh, this is easy, and so on and so forth. So you practice changing your perspective, and then you get good at changing your perspective. For me, it was both.
Yeah.
It was the big quantum leap for the drama. And then the remaining years, I spent practicing changing my perspective on all sorts of topics.
Yeah, so you've had both for sure. And I did too. Well, my quantum leap wasn't like yours. Geez. Like that story is incredible. But I did have some drama. I got a divorce. I left my country and I left everything behind. My kids went with my ex-husband. I mean, they were older. They weren't like little babies or anything, but still for the first time in their lives, like everything was completely different and my whole life changed. I got rid of everything I owned. So yeah, it was a big quantum leap for me as well. But then I've spent the last 4 years learning concepts that are in the book and that aren't in the book because there's only 26 pages. And the things I have learned, the perspectives of that I have changed, the things you've taught me, they would be like 26 volumes, not pages. But anyway, so I get it. So, what were some of the challenges for you shifting that perspective from going from massive jerk to belief ninja master that you are today?
Well, it wasn't as big a change as you think, because I don't know if you've ever noticed this in life, but a lot of the people who are super fat become fitness experts.
Yeah.
And a lot of the repressed Christians become strippers.
Yes.
And a lot of the strippers become pastors.
Yeah.
A lot of people with temper problems become anger management counselors later on in life.
Yeah. So this goes back to that. Remember when we were at Starbucks and I said the example of the stick when they're both the same on the same end? So this makes sense. If you're a massive jerk, then being a massive, amazing human being, that's on the same end of the stick.
Yeah. And the reason is because when you're familiar with one side of the spectrum, the topic or the stick, it's really easy to find the opposite. Like if you asked someone who had a black and white and beige closet for years and you said, I really wish my life was more colorful or I'm having trouble with color, they'll be able to tell you, like, because they know the opposite of what they have. They know it intimately. Right. They'll be like, oh, rainbows and saturated colors and all sorts of hues. If you ever go past this shade of gray or this saturation level of hue or tint, then you're going to have way more pop. You're going to have way more color. And they'll be able to tell you, like,
right.
And so for me, it was just a matter of using my natural lawyer skill and arguing skill and logic skill to actually help people. Instead of looking out for myself and arguing whatever I want, just start admitting I'm wrong. I'm wrong about this. I'm wrong about that. I might be wrong about this. I might be wrong about that. I'm open. I don't know. But I'm happy to argue for your cause. I'm happy to make your case. If you're saying you're a terrible person and I know the truth is that every human is wonderful, then I'll start making that case.
Right.
I'll start arguing powerfully for your advantage, for your strength. If you're like, oh, my business is never going to work, I will just argue powerfully that it will. I believe in you. I can help you. There are ways. There are solutions. Many other businesses before have worked, and so on and so forth. So I started practicing my perspectives, right? I started practicing defending and arguing for my perspectives. I just made sure they were healthier, more mature, more well-rounded perspectives that I was arguing for. So it's really just the flip side of what I was when I was a kid, where I always was able to make my point. I just used it to make better, healthier points that uplift others and elevate others more than out of self-interest or trying to look good or trying to be right or whatever.
Right. Okay. I want to make a point of saying something here about that, actually, because one of the things I really love about you is if I come to you with an issue or a question or just a statistic or a thought or whatever, and I'll argue my side or discuss my side. I don't like to use argue, but if I discuss my side with you, one of the cool things is you'll say your side, and then you'll say the magic words that I never heard anyone in my life say is, I could be wrong. I'm open to it. Like, this is a really loving thing. This tells me that even if you have an idea of something or I have an idea, if I had proof for you or I show you something whatever, you would be okay with saying, I'm wrong. Like, this is okay.
I've done it tons of times.
I know. And it's taught me to do the same. So I just want to thank you because for many, 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 many years, I had to be right. I was the smartest person in the room. I cared about being right. Just like you, it was like I would fight to the death. And I see people on social media doing it all the time. And it breaks my heart because I was that person. And now we have a saying in our home is the first person
To admit they're wrong
they win.
wins.
Yeah.
Whoever admits they're wrong first wins. Because if you're clinging to old wrong views, you're a loser. Like you've lost. You lose. It does not help you to cling to old perspectives that do not serve you. So stay open, get ready, and when you hear a new perspective, just admit your old one was wrong and move on. Then you're a winner.
Yeah. And I watch a lot of podcasts and doing research and with my side of the business. And I recently saw a video where this girl's reacting to somebody who admits they're wrong. And she was like, oh my God, like made such a big deal. No one ever says they're wrong. This is amazing. And I instantly thought of you because it's such an incredible thing. And thank you for teaching me this. Thank you for teaching me that it's not only okay to be wrong, it's amazing to be wrong. And it's that in and of itself is a big perspective change that came overall in general with all the things that you taught me. So thank you. So yeah, so I want to go back to the challenges you may have so people can understand that sometimes there are some challenges when you start changing perspectives. And sometimes they're within yourself and sometimes it comes from others. So I'd love for you to share what challenges that you experienced when you were going through this.
The main challenge is knowing when to change your perspective, or rather, when you do know when to change your perspective, to actually change it.
Okay.
So you change your perspective when you're triggered. This is it. If you're triggered in any way, I mean, even the slightest, tiniest little voice in the back of your head or whatever. If you're feeling negatively or feeling bad or feeling frustrated or feeling upset or feeling sad or feeling triggered or feeling mad or whatever, this is a sign that your perspective is not as healthy and wonderful and elevated as it could be. Because I could put someone else beside you who would see the situation in a totally different way and they'd be all zen, calm, and just chill about it. I could take a kid who misses their first basket at the basketball net and they're having a tantrum. And I could take a Michael Jordan and he's like, whatever, dude, I've missed 23 game-winning shots. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Chill, get some perspective. And if the little kid wants to grow up to be Jordan, he better get this perspective sooner than later. He needs to make peace with missing a basket sooner or later.
Yeah.
If you show me someone who gets triggered and angry every time they do something or they interact with something or something happens to them, I'll show you someone who needs to change their perspective or who would be served greatly by changing their perspective. And so the first challenge is to notice when you're triggered of any kind. And then once you do, the next challenge is changing your perspective because it's so much easier or less effort or less trying or a more familiar habit to just dwell in the trigger.
Yes.
That's what people want to do. They just want to dwell and vent and express anything but change their perspective. That's the last on their list. And so this is a challenge. This is it. But what's the challenge of getting a basket in a basketball hoop? Aiming, posture, form, I don't know. Who cares? The point is, it's a challenge. That's why it exists. The hoop is there. Not everyone can land it. It takes practice. You got to master the challenge. Same with perspectives. The trigger happens. Not everyone's going to bother. They won't practice it, but some people will. And they're up for the challenge. And they'll nail it. And then they'll have a superpower. They'll have a skill. Just like Jordan becomes a great basketball player, or LeBron, or whoever you love, you and I can become great at changing our perspectives, or any of our wonderful listeners.
Okay. This actually answers my next question too. So, which was, how do we know when to change your perspective? So this is excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate this. And I know I've learned from you that like a trigger means there's something inside you that you need to look closer at. But I didn't really realize it that deep, that not only do I have to look at it, but it's a perspective I need to change. So just a small example is when I look at some of these podcasts and watch them, I get I get triggered sometimes by the ridiculous stuff, the woke people insist on and saying whatever. And sometimes I find myself getting annoyed and upset. And so when I was getting ready for the podcast and we were having a conversation and you thought it was about like what we were talking about. And I was like, no, I'm watching this ridiculous video. And you're like, well, maybe, you shouldn't. And I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. And I turned it off. But now I see it as I was triggered, not just what they were saying, but I had watched so many. I was getting annoyed because there's just so many people saying these things that annoy me. But really, I need to look at it as a positive thing. So changing my perspective of these people are confused and I want to help them. And having this podcast is part of how I want to help these people, whether they're up to change their perspective or not, but I am. So I'm really glad that we had this and you mentioned this because now I will look closer at those things that annoy me and look to change my perspective. And I already feel better about these videos going forward. So like you're seeing any perspective change like that right here in front of you guys. So
and we can take it further. Like you want our podcast to stand out.
Yeah.
So to stand out, you need to be different in a crowd of sameness.
Right.
So if there wasn't a crowd of weird, random woke people saying weird things, would you stand out?
No.
So you need the crowd of these views.
Yeah, I do.
So they're a blessing to help you succeed in your business.
They are. They really are.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. You're awesome. This was not planned. This was not talked about before. So thank you for leading us here, answering my questions. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great stuff.
Thanks. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next stuff. So do you have any specific tips or tools that you haven't mentioned already that can help people to change their perspective? Other than our wonderful book, you should buy that. That will help you change your perspective.
It will. Every single page will change your perspective on something different.
It will, yeah.
But yeah, there's plenty of tools we have at our disposal naturally all the time. It's just most people don't use them and are out of practice with them. The biggest, most powerful tool for changing your perspective is playing the devil's advocate in a healthy way, not like in an antagonistic, I'm going to make fun of this person or poke the bear way.
Yeah.
In a mature, healthy, inside my mind way. Like I'm going to play the devil's advocate for myself.
Okay.
And so anytime I think about an idea, like, oh, that person is bad, I can play the devil's advocate. Well, why are they good? Right? If they were arguing for themselves, they would argue in their favor. They'd say, no, I'm a good person. Yeah. So you see someone, I don't know, steal something, and you're like, that person is bad. But if you put yourself in their shoes and play the devil's advocate, they'll say, I was stealing bread from my family, or I've been repressed my whole life by my parents and teachers and peers, and now this is the only thing that makes me feel sane. I think I might hurt myself or others if I don't do this. And it's like, these are justifications and stuff, but like you can sort of see where the person's coming from. And all of a sudden, I'm not like, that person is bad. I'm more thinking, well, this situation is not ideal, and I'm not sure how they got to be in this position, but surely we can change this and have a better society. And like I just have a healthier perspective on it. That's all.
Yeah.
Or one of my businesses fails, and I'm like, oh, this is a tragedy. This is terrible. This is the worst thing that ever happened. And you can see I'm triggered and I'm tense and I'm anxious and I'm judging it and I'm negative. Obviously, this is an opportunity to change my perspective. And someone else who's failed 20 businesses and is now successful and happy would look at my situation and be like, dude, what? That's how you learn. That's how you cut your teeth. You gotta cut your teeth on a couple failed businesses. What are you talking about? Be happy you got it out of the way, man.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do it right on the next one. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a different perspective. Way to play the devil's advocate. Way to talk the other side of things. And so for me, if I play the devil's advocate for any situation that's bothering me, I'm always able to reach a healthier, more mature, more elevated, broader perspective on it. And I automatically feel better and I'm more empowered. And when someone else has that problem, I can share my new perspective with them and help them too. The only thing is it takes focus and it takes effort and it takes like human resourcefulness to think about the other side. It's so much easier just to be like, this is terrible. I've reached a conclusion. I'm done with my thinking. The situation is terrible. That's it. And when next time I meet somebody at a bar, I'm going to tell them about my terrible situation. I'm not going to think about it any deeper. This is what people like to do. This is the easy way out. But it's not easy actually at all. It actually makes your life terrible and keeps you stuck and makes your perspective small and limited and weak and powerless. It is not useful. It is not helpful. It looks like the easy way, but it is the hardest way. It's much easier just to sit down for a second, play the devil's advocate, see the other side of things, and uplift yourself.
Yeah, I agree completely. It was much harder for me when I was hating people and jealous and angry and the hateful person I was. And if you disagreed with me, I made me hate you even more. Now it's much easier to feel good and to see other people as inherently good and understand them on another level. So thank you for teaching me this too. And earlier when you saw my perspective shift, it may seem like it was such an easy thing for me to do, but it's practice. Like I have 4 years of practice. So for me, it still takes a little bit longer than it takes you because you do it so fast.
Yeah, the other day you got some news and you were jealous because someone was traveling or moving or something and you weren't currently able to.
Yes. Yeah.
But I instantly saw it as a good thing. It took you a little bit to come around to that.
It did. And
that's okay. Sometimes it takes me a while.
Yeah. And I wanted to point that out for people who maybe try it and it doesn't happen immediately. It didn't happen overnight for you and it didn't happen overnight for me. It takes practice and we've been practicing this for a while.
Yeah, you don't sink 3-pointers consistently without practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you don't change perspective consistently without practice.
Yeah.
If you don't like the devil's advocate tool, you can use other tools like asking better questions. So something shitty happens and you can ask, is there a good side to this? Are there benefits here? Is there any possible tiny silver lining I can find in this? Might this serve the greater whole? Might this serve society somehow? Does this empower me to teach my children a better lesson? Does this empower me to be a more inspirational speaker? Does this give me a story or some relatable drama in my life that will help me connect with others? Is there any good thing from this event that I'm judging, right? Or this interaction that I have a narrow perspective on? These kind of questions are also great at shifting your perspective or nudging it in a different direction, a more positive direction.
Yeah, this is one of the main ways that I do it is by you asking me or I'm asking myself, like, what's good about this? What's the positive side of this? The silver lining. So, and it's still like something I'm working on and practicing. So again, thank you.
My pleasure. A third tool you can use is to immerse yourself in other people's perspectives. We live in the information age. Mm-hmm. There are books on everything under the sun. There are articles you can Google on even more than that. But I highly recommend books because books are where people deep dive on a topic and cover as many perspectives as possible in those pages. And they might miss one or two here or there, but you're going to get a much more well-rounded look at things. As a child, I was a speed reader. I've read thousands and thousands of books. I couldn't even possibly count. And it exposed me to more and more perspectives.
Yeah.
And so finding a good, healthy, uplifting, empowering perspective is kind of like choosing a fine wine. It's a bit tricky for some random on the street who's never tried wine before to tell the difference between a good or bad one. They might not even be able to tell if wine is off or bad. They'll just drink it. It's their first time ever. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Turned out that wine was off. Like, that was not good.
Yeah.
But they can't know because they don't have exposure to all the different wines and they haven't immersed themselves in that field. I'm not a wine connoisseur, but if I wanted to become good at selecting wines, I would have to immerse myself in the wine world and start sampling different kinds. You don't develop a sensitive palate, by not trying anything. And you don't develop a good sensitivity to perspectives, to healthy views, without trying on different perspectives. So in Eyes Wide Open Volume 1, for example, each page is my pure distilled thoughts and questions on an important topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sex life, wealth creation, body transformation, you name it. And at the end of every page, there's a further info section where I give recommended reading. And I recommend the best book I've found on the topic. And so if you really want to change your perspective, hopefully what I've written has planted a seed. But even more importantly, hopefully you're inspired and motivated to go and immerse yourself in that topic, read that recommended resource, and really familiarize yourself with the different perspectives that are out there.
Right. Well, I second the book thing. Quite well read as well. I've read a ton of books, but nothing close to what you've read. But I think that maybe opened me to being more receptive to changing my perspectives and even meeting you in the first place and learning from you and being so excited by all your views and the way you thought and talk, and just you are definitely an unusual individual, and in the most loving and kind and wonderful way. I say that because I have yet to meet anyone that has the same perspective of life in general, and learning and changing your views and so on and so forth than you. So I definitely recommend immersing yourself in a topic to help you change perspective. It helped me in business and beauty and life and love, and like I read constantly, and it's because of you. So
yeah,
thank you.
So those 3 tools are your best bet. But if you want a shortcut, a beautiful, quick, easy shortcut, you can read our full color coffee table book.
It's the world's first.
It is the world's first self-help coffee table book. It is. Yeah. Yes. And each page is pure distilled wisdom that will shift your perspective on something important.
Yeah. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
You made most of the art and all of the words, and I'm merely the editor. But you did a fantastic job, really. Okay, so we're gonna move on. So what if we change our perspective ourselves? We've got the hang of it. We're doing it. We're becoming better people, all of us. And then we have people around us that we love dearly, and we don't want to sever ties. So can we use persuasion or other tips you might have for us to help change other people's perspective so we're kind of on the same page?
That is a really good question.
Thank you.
For the longest time, I spent so much energy and effort on changing other people's perspectives. You can even argue that the book we just wrote is for that purpose.
Right.
But I did this because I saw life as a bunch of people interacting with one another. And if we didn't like another person's perspective, we should just change it. Go convince them, argue them down, club them into submission with our words, make sure they buy into our agenda.
I mean, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound very nice.
No, but that's how I saw life.
Right.
If my mom didn't agree with me, I would argue with her. If my brothers and sister didn't agree with me, I would argue with them. If my clients didn't agree with me, I would argue with them. Mm. Then I would make pages of essays and content and memes to convince people and persuade them to see things my way. Mm. But eventually, I learned to see life a different way. What if life isn't a bunch of people interacting with one another and trying to club and convince each other into our own agendas? What if instead life is a game with 8 billion players, and all of those players are at different levels of consciousness? And so because they have different levels of consciousness, their consciousness stat might be lower or higher than other players, so be it. A player of very high consciousness is going to have difficulty relating to or partying up with lower consciousness players. Okay. They're not anywhere on the same sphere. Like, they're not even on the same planet. Like, they're totally different players in the game. Yeah. One is doing circles around life and like understands a million perspectives, and they're great at this. Mm-hmm. The other one is struggling to change any perspectives and almost can't even see if they need to change a perspective. And they're just at a different level of consciousness. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The game doesn't judge. The game doesn't say like, oh, all of you should be pro players by now. The game is just like, cool, wherever you're at, no big deal. Live your life, do your thing, understand as much as you can understand, and change as many perspectives as you can manage. So be it. That's fine. You're allowed to play the game that way. You're allowed to be a beginner at life. You're allowed to not be the world's best human, right? And it's weird for someone who might be further along in the game or might have different perspective stats and so on to try to come down and just convince them all and make them all into pro players immediately.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons I think that you always say, like, everybody has their own timeline and everybody's on their own pace, right? Well, this makes sense. So just to make sure I understand, when I'm talking to somebody like family members of mine who maybe don't understand things the same way I do, it's not very helpful to try to convince them or turn them to my side because I'm a level 25 and she's a level 2, but that's okay.
Yeah, and this is just a metaphor. I don't want to have everyone running around judging their family as worse or better. I'm just saying it's an example of how you can see life in a different way,
right,
and in a healthier way where you don't try to make all the other players play the way you do or make them be at your level. You wouldn't want someone else who's further along to come down and do that to you. It would feel weird and pressury. Yeah. And they're like, why aren't you a billionaire, dude? You got to change all your perspectives. You should be a billionaire by now. It's like, whoa, man. Like, I'm on my own journey. I don't think I'm ready for that. But if they're so excited to share their perspectives, like, you see how awkward it can get when we're all trying to convert one another to our own views.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay. So that's point one, is if you see life differently, if you see it as a game with many players, each at a different consciousness level, and some are ready to shift perspectives and some are not, then we can be more chill about it. It's like, okay, man, I don't need to convince everybody. It's okay for my fam or my boss or somebody to see things differently. And it's okay if they don't come around and buy into my view and get it clicking immediately. Right. At the same time, we are still all a society of people interacting with one another. And we will meet people, some people, who are ready to shift perspective. And it would be very good for us if we could nudge them along or give them a helping hand or convince or persuade or help them discover a new perspective that enlightens them.
Right.
And it would help us if we have more like minds around us who are able to sort of vibe on the same level, kind of get what we're saying, and we can have meaningful interactions, and we're not playing the game of life with people way different levels than us. I don't want to play with people who are a million times further than I am, and I don't want to play with people who are like way, way, way in a different perspective.
Right.
I'm happy to expand my perspectives and find new ones and grow and so on, but no game is fun when you just put beginners with experts nonstop. The experts don't have fun because they have no challenge, and the beginners don't have fun because they can't even keep up.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right. So, in life, we will find some people who are ripe for perspective change. Whether it's us being changed by their views or whether it's them being changed by our views. Both are fine. It's fine to admit we're wrong and like, oh, I didn't see it that way. You're right. I'm happy to learn this perspective. And it's fine for someone else to say the same thing to us. The challenge is discerning these situations. Are you dealing with someone whose perspective you're likely to change? Or are you dealing with someone who's playing a totally different game than you, and you should probably leave them to their thing?
Okay.
If you find someone who is ripe for perspective change, then you can use tools like persuasion and influence and rapport and mirroring and all these different techniques to make your case and state your point and nudge them along, or you may require many different interactions and repetitions with them before they finally get it. And it's up to you to decide how much energy and effort you want to pour into these people to bringing them on board or getting them on the same page or getting on the same page as they are.
Right. Okay.
So it's doable, but is it wise? It's doable, but should I be doing it with this person?
Right.
Most people just get attached and are like, I want to convince my family of XYZ.
Yes.
I want to convince my boss of XYZ. But maybe you were never supposed to be with those people for this period of your life. Maybe you were supposed to go find other like minds. Maybe you're supposed to leave them to learn on their own and grow on their own and take a different path. Maybe you two are supposed to reunite later as they're like enlightened and humbled and they've come through life and they're like, you know what, that thing you were saying back then, I'm ready now. But no one wants to do that. They just want to force it. Whatever family I was born into, I'm changing those people. And whatever boss I happen to have right now, I'm changing that person. Finding my own crew, finding my own squad, finding my own like minds, no way, man. I'm changing the people I'm with. That's how people handle it.
I know.
So is it helpful? Is it wise? Is this a good path? Is this going to pay off for you? Is this a great way to use your energy? Is this going to brighten your day as you try to change these particular people?
So the people that I have in my mind, I don't think that it may not be my path to do that.
Or at least right now. Maybe you do it years later.
Yeah. And so maybe it's just accepting them as they are and understanding that we have different perspectives on life and the way I should live my life and be okay with that. So thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Maybe they're playing a different game at a different level.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it is. And I still love them very much.
Sure.
And I'm not going to disown them or, I've distanced myself physically from everybody in my family so that I can learn and be a better person. And like everyone assumes I came here to be with you, but really I came to learn from you. That's the number one reason that I moved here. And then just I happened to be in love with you at the same time. But that wasn't guaranteed. There was no guarantee there when I moved here that we were going to move in together and develop something. All I knew was that I needed to learn from you and keep changing perspectives. And it was the best choice that I've ever made for myself. Outside of our relationship, the best choice for me, because I learned to change my perspectives on everything and to be a better person and to be the best me so that I could level up in the game.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm glad you did it. I'm a fountain of new perspectives. I love sharing them. I love finding new ones. I've distanced myself from a client recently. Perhaps we'll reunite when we're more on the same page. This is fine. This is okay. This is acceptable. This is zen. This is at peace. There's nothing wrong with this. But many people would have serious issues with this.
Okay. So actually, as the person who runs your social media, I know this firsthand because I've seen people from your past come back and say, I'm so sorry, I wasn't ready. Like there's an artist that you used to be friends with a long time ago who I don't know, I didn't even know you when you were friends, and one day showed up in your inbox and was like, I'm so sorry, my bad. Like I wasn't prepared for that at the time. So yeah, it's happened to me too. So I get it. And it's you're amazing and wonderful. And I'm so grateful. So thank you. So, all right, I'm going to move on then. Okay. So then I have someone in my life that we have different perspectives and they don't want to change their perspective on one thing. And I don't want to change my perspective on the same thing, but we get along for everything else. We mostly have the same perspectives on other things. So how do you, in this case, where this person is not any interested whatsoever, we're mostly on the same level, in the game, like you said. So how do we accept that we're just different people and we have different perspectives and neither of us are going to change the other? So how do we accept this and continue to get along and not poke at each other any chance we get?
It's a great question.
Thanks. When he says that to me, it makes me so happy.
Well, it is. So there's a few ways to do this, but I find the easiest way is to take a step back and understand the diversity of the world. So since caveman times, there's been a diversity in the world. The world loves diversity. there's continually more plants, continually more animals, continually more species, more rocks, more terrain, more everything. There's continually more types of people.
Yeah.
Maybe they were all the same height at the start. I don't know. But quickly there's tall ones and short ones. And quickly there's wide ones and skinny ones. And quickly there's deep voiced ones. And quickly there's high voiced ones. There's continual diversity. Nature, Earth, the universe, whatever you want to call it, clearly aims for diversity. So when you apply this clear inclination towards diversity to human perspectives, what are you going to get?
Lots of different perspectives.
Yeah. Right. So do you believe you're ever going to get rid of all of those different perspectives?
Oh, no.
Right. There's continually more.
Yeah. And even if we did, more would crop up and come up.
So since all these diverse perspectives must exist, do we need human beings to have these perspectives, to hold them?
Yeah, we do.
Right. And so might you and your friend be meant to hold these different perspectives?
Yes, we are.
If you were able to, wherever you went in life, change someone's perspective to something different, then you could be like a little candle that goes through all the world, transforming them all into the exact same color candle as you.
Yeah, that would be really boring.
Right.
And really
so it's good
nice.
You don't have that power.
Yeah. Okay, fair play.
It's good there are some people you can't change their perspective.
Yeah.
They need to exist on the planet.
Yes.
As much as people wish they didn't, and oh my God, and they're terrible and they're ruining the world, and let's judge and hate them and burn them all at the stake.
Yeah.
They have to exist. Nature, the universe, the world is going to make sure it happens. There will always be a diversity of perspectives. So just make peace with it now.
Okay.
So for me, I find that helps when I'm having trouble reconciling someone who won't change their perspective, or someone who I keep failing to change their perspective. It's like, you know what? The world needs someone who thinks this, someone somewhere who thinks this. It's kind of annoying that I bumped into them and we don't see the eye to eye, but it's also still fine. It's also still good.
Well, we can't have light without darkness. So.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. This is actually quite helpful. So I appreciate you. Okay, so what if somebody really wants to change something? They want to change their perspective. They've started doing things and then they get triggered by something and then they backslide. Does this mean their perspective hasn't really changed, or they need to do more work, or maybe they're addicted to the comfortable place of staying with their perspective unchanged?
So perspectives are very solid things. When you have one, you know you have one, and it's solid and you can stand on it. If your perspective is that the rich should be taxed, that's a pretty solid perspective. Like, you're not going to randomly change that tomorrow.
No.
Unless there's like some kind of quantum leap. You might change it over time, over repetition. Like if you become a rich person and now you have rich friends and you guys all get together and they all sort of convince you taxing the rich is bad. You're like, you know what? Yeah, I don't. You might change it.
Okay.
But overall, perspectives are strong places to stand on. That's why people like them and cling to them.
Okay.
If you believe I'm just an unlucky person and you can blame a million things in your life on that unluckiness, that's a strong perspective, and it's reliable and it's solid and you can stand on it. And now anytime anyone says anything to you, you just rely on your perspective. I'm an unlucky person, discussion over. And you get back to your normal habit of life. You don't have to think very much. There's no critical thinking. You don't have to change. You don't have to grow. You can just stand on your perspective. So if you want to change a perspective, understand that you're changing something very solid and it feels a bit shaky ground as you change it and you're playing with new ideas and so on and so forth. And only once you've held the new perspective for long enough does it become solidified and strong and you can stand on it and you can defend it to others. And when it comes up in conversation, you just rely on your new perspective and it ends the discussion. Same thing, but with a different perspective.
Okay.
So it takes energy and focus and effort to change that perspective. And if you don't put in enough energy, effort, and focus to change that perspective, it won't change. You'll end up back at your old one. And it's really just a matter of practice and determination. And it's kind of like It's kind of like a kid trying to reach a glass on the counter or a cup on the counter. The first time they can't reach it. The second time they can't reach it. The third time they can't reach it. It looks like they're backsliding. And you're like, oh, they're back at the old spot. They're back at the old perspective. They're standing on the kitchen floor trying their best, whatever. But the kid knows if I keep trying, if I keep playing with the perspective, even if I backslide, I'm going to get that. And it feels like they're actually growing, or they're stretching their spine, or they're like, I don't know how, but they somehow reach the cup,
right?
And they get it. And now they have the new perspective. And once they have it, they have it. It's solid.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we all sort of go through this process, and we know when we're sliding back to an old perspective and not quite hitting it. And we know when we've landed solidly on the new perspective.
Yeah.
We know when we have it. And it's really just a matter of practice, focus, and determination. The only thing is most people see all the effort of reaching for the cup as too much effort. They're like, I'd rather lay on my rocking chair playing video games.
It's true.
I do not want to go stretch and stretch and stretch and reach and reach and reach and mentally do the work and try and get this new perspective.
Right.
They just want to lay back in comfy old perspective. Yeah, I'm unlucky, whatever. That's my view on life. Yeah. They don't want to change their perspective. They don't want to become a lucky person. They don't want to get out of that hole. They don't want to be more positive. They don't want to hear any of it. They are not hearing it. But you're like, but you could just reach the new cup if you just listen to me. They don't want to hear it. And so you'll have trouble changing your perspective. They'll have trouble changing their perspective because to them, the pain of actually reaching is not worth it. They're comfy in their old perspectives. Right. And so until their chair is falling apart and disintegrating, until the springs are poking up into their booty, until they are miserable in their current perspective, only then do most people even bother getting a new perspective. And you can see I was the same. I had to be homeless for years, living on the streets on the cold before I even bothered changing one perspective.
Yeah.
What the hell? Am I an idiot? Why didn't I just change my perspectives? No, I had to hit rock bottom and go through the hardship and wait till my comfy chair was poking me in the booty. Like, people only change their perspectives when things are really bad where they are. It's not a great way to live, but so be it.
Yeah, same for me. I had to spend 15 years with somebody and be unhappy for years and years before I decided to make changes in my life. So,
well, even recently, I kept insisting you do this in the business or that in the business. You had to wait till I was like ready to leave before you change.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for helping me change my perspectives, helping me see life in a completely different way, seeing myself in a different way, seeing other people. Because this podcast, this episode is just a teeny tiny drop of what you've done for me and how you can help other people. And thank you for writing this amazing book. It is so life-changing.
Yeah, I'm really proud.
And you should be, because every single page, every concept, every idea, every word really helped me. And I wish I had before video to show you guys, like, the person I used to be. It was horrible. And you helped me to be a better person. And the book, everything in there really genuinely changed my life. And I don't say that because I'm your partner and I love you. I do. But that has nothing to do with the facts. And you helped me become a really nice person and a person that I'm super proud to be. And so thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Let's do it for more people.
Yes. Okay, so do you have anything that you want to share your final thoughts with our wonderful audience?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. All the other self-help books talking to you about your emotions and your mindset and whatever are weak sauce. It doesn't help you very much. I'm a big fan of changing your attitudes and emotions and moods. I'm a big fan of improving your thoughts and your beliefs, but both of those are obliterated by changing your perspective. Changing your perspective solves so many things. It is your superpower. It is worth getting good at. And if you don't, you will suffer. So please, just take control of your life, take control of your perspective, take control of your reality, and live well. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And that's why this podcast is called Eyes Wide Open.
Keep rising.